So I saw a video from a couple of weeks ago that piqued my interest on a topic that really interests me. Let's have a look.
Chinese and the Vietnamese have been fighting with each other for more than 2,000 years. That's beef dating back to the Bronze Age.
Well, the Chinese have a complicated relationship with the Vietnamese. As with all relationship, there is love, but there would also be beef as well. But is it true that there are beef between the Chinese and the Vietnamese going back to the Bronze Age? Now, it should be remembered that the Bronze Age in East Asia lasted roughly between 2000 BC to 200 BC, corresponding with the Qin's unification of China. That's 4,000 years to roughly 2,000 years ago. Remember these dates, we will come back to them shortly. First, we need to define what is Vietnam. Now, the modern country of Vietnam is made up of two words, Viet and Nam, or in modern Chinese, Yue and Nan. Nam or Nan means south. That's simple. But Viet or Yue, now that's quite interesting, and tracing the etymology of this word is central to answering our question today. Now, in Chinese, Yue at its core means across or crossover or somewhere across that river. Well, the first use of this word Yue were found in the Shang oracle bones 3,200 years ago. The first time this word was actually used to refer to a nation was in the Guo Yu, or the Discourses of the State, a book dated to roughly 2,500 years ago. Yue in this book refers to the state of Yue, a state at the edge of the Chinese world at that time, geographically corresponding roughly to the modern province of Zhejiang, originally considered semi-barbaric by the princely states of the Zhou dynasty. The state of Yue eventually came into a series of conflicts with the state of Wu to its north during the spring and autumn period of the Zhou dynasty, rising to prominence under the rule of Goujian, a king I've talked about in quite a number of previous videos, ultimately defeating and annexing the state of Wu in 473 BC, cementing itself as a major power under the Zhou dynasty. Now, unfortunately for the state of Yue, it would not survive the onslaught of the Warring State period, as the state of Chu eventually defeated and annexed it in 333 BC. But the defeat of Yue is not the end of its story. Now, three subsequent kingdoms to the south continue to bear the name of Yue. The first two are Dongyue and Minyue. These were both kingdoms founded by the royal bloodlines of the defeated state of Yue, fleeing south to escape persecution. Dongyue is a small remnant state, retaining a small part of the previous Yue territory, while Minyue roughly corresponds in territory to the modern province of Fujian. The third state that bears the name Yue was Nanyue, corresponding to the territories of modern Guangdong, Guangxi, North and Central Vietnam. And yes, if you think Nanyue sounds like the reverse of Yunnan, you are correct. It is the reverse of that word. All three Yues would eventually be absorbed by the Han dynasty, who viewed them as remnants of both the Warring States period and the civil war that followed from the short-lived Qin unification prior. Nanyue and Dongyue in 111 BC, Minyue in 110 BC. The fall of Nanyue signified the start of what would be called the first era of northern domination in Vietnamese history, where northern Vietnam was organized and administered as a province under the Han dynasty. Now, the dates here indicate conflict between Yue and the Chinese organizations going back to at least the late spring and autumn period, roughly before the time of Goujian, 2,500 plus years ago, which was clearly within the late Chinese Bronze Age. So, can it be safe to say that the Chinese have been beefing with the Vietnamese for 2,500 years or since the Bronze Age? Well, not so simple. Here's where it gets interesting. Now, the word Yue was not only used to describe the Yue state, but also used to describe a collection of maybe unrelated or partially related people the Chinese call Baiyue, as in the 100 Yue, or more accurately, the 100 tribes of Yue people. Unfortunately for us, the early Chinese did not bother to distinguish the different types of Yue, other than noting that the Yues kept their hair short, practices tattooing and blackening of the teeth, and often warred amongst themselves more than they did the Chinese. Now, with modern archaeology, genetics, and linguistic studies, we know now that the Baiyue that the Chinese referred to most likely consists of a number of culturally distinct ethno-linguistic groups. As can be seen here, all major surviving ethno-linguistic groups of Southeast Asia has its homeland in southern China. Modern Vietnamese speak Austro-Asiatic language, but Austro-Asiatic distribution from prehistory to modern day has never included the area generally associated with the state of Yue. This is interesting. In fact, there are genetic evidence to suggest that Liangzhu culture, which preceded the state of Yue geographically, were Austronesian speakers carrying the Y haplogroup O1, which is common among modern Austronesian speakers today. While we cannot directly link Liangzhu to the state of Yue, as there is a 1,000-year interval between the disappearance of Liangzhu culture and the rise of the state of Yue, Chinese records indicated clearly that while the ruling class of the state of Yue descended from Yellow River cultures, the people of Yue spoke a language that is distinct from its rulers. By referring to Chinese transliterated words in Yue documents like Yue Renke or Wei Jialing, it is widely recognized that the languages of the Yue people or the Yue state was highly polysyllabic. Now, this is an important clue as the majority of languages originating from mainland China were predominantly monosyllabic, with polysyllabic exceptions being Japonic, Koreanic, and Austronesians. What this means is that there is a high possibility that the language spoken by the Baiyue of the state of Yue were Austronesians due to its linguistic features, along with genetic and geographical proximity to the homeland of Austronesian languages. Now, it is important to note that this conclusion, while popular, is not unanimous. There are those that argue for a Thai or Austro-Asiatic connection instead. This is further compounded by the fact that Austro-Asiatic languages itself has languages which has monosyllabic tendencies, like Vietnamese, and those with polysyllabic tendencies, like Khmer. Plus, it's not that unusual to maybe have pockets of people surrounded by others who speak an unrelated language. For example, like the Cham people in central Vietnam, who spoke Austronesian languages amongst a sea of Austro-Asiatic speakers. What this is to say is we cannot say with certainty that the Yue or the Viet that beef with the Chinese in the Bronze Age are people directly ancestral to people living in modern Vietnam today. But the Nan Yue that has its origin in Qin conquest of Lingnan and its subsequent absorption by Han Dynasty definitely started a cycle of beefing between the Vietnamese and the Chinese from roughly 200 BC. That is the entering of the Iron Age in East Asia. Now, I thoroughly enjoyed making this video. I love reading up about ancient histories of East Asia and Southeast Asia. If you like my content and would like to support my work, do like my content, share my content, and most importantly, subscribe.